Welcome to Moneyline MMA coverage of UFC Vegas 70, featuring Ryan Spann versus Nikita Krylov, a light heavyweight matchup. But Jose and I are going to be giving you our usual five weights. Currently, this fight card is slated on Saturday, February 25th, with the prelims beginning at 3 p.m. Central Time. So we'll be in Vegas, midday fights for Vegas leading into the night, especially on the East Coast. That being said, with six fights listed on this main card, Jose and I are going to bring you our usual five weights, starting with the five weight, meaning our most confident pick. And that five weight for me this week is going to be Nikita Krylov. We're starting right out with the banger, going straight to the main event, guys. And look, Nikita Krylov is a minus 186 favorite. Ryan Spann plus 144 underdog right now. Jose, what are you looking at right now for if you have a weight on this one? Because keep in mind that there will be one fight each of us don't have a weight on.
Yeah, so for this one, I do have a way, and I actually don't understand why. But I'm going to go with the underdog, Ryan Spann. And what I don't understand is why he's actually such a big underdog because he himself is coming off a two-fight winning streak. And as a matter of fact, he's coming off two first-round finishes, especially an impressive KO win over Dominic Reyes. So that being said, like I'm just kind of surprised to see he's the underdog, and I actually have a lot of confidence in him. So I'm going with Ryan Spann as my three-way because I do have two other people I have a little more confidence in them, but I'm not like that scared. So I placed him at three, but if other fighters weren't fighting, he probably would be higher on my list. So
Sure.
there you got it. I have Ryan Spann with my weight number three.
Interesting, man. Yeah, I get it. I like Ryan Spann a lot. My pick here, and especially my five weight confidence, is not necessarily to knock Ryan Spann as much as I'm just pretty impressed by what Krylov's able to do. And in all honesty, man, I just don't think Ryan Spann has a chance of knocking out Krylov. I think at this point, Krylov's proven that he's a better striker. And you can see that through his striking differential being better than Ryan Spann. And they both have a relatively extensive UFC career to base those stats on. And I don't think Krylov is also concerned about being on the ground either. He has more submission wins than Ryan Spann does in his career. So I don't know, man. That being said, I really am not sure exactly how this fight's going to finish. If Krylov's going to be able to submit Ryan Spann necessarily, but I definitely think Krylov will at least win this fight. He'll be, in my opinion, a really solid bet, whether it's by decision or any other method. Mainly because, like I mentioned, that striking advantage.
Yeah, no, of course, yeah, Nick, and I think this is actually a really tight fight. I'm surprised the money line isn't tighter than what it is because both guys I think are pretty well rounded. Both have striking finishing power, but yeah, their grappling both holds up well. Like you mentioned, Krylov does have 15 submission wins on his record. He does have more submission wins, but I mean Ryan Spann out of like both these guys have high records. I mean, one guy is 20. Krylov is 29-9 and Spann 21-7. These guys, both for being the age 31 and 30, they're similar age and they have a good amount of experience. And even though Krylov has 15 submissions, Ryan Spann has 12. So he is of a grappling threat, I believe. And Krylov does have more losses via submission than Spann. So if Spann can't put Krylov out, I do think that he is more of a threat to make a submission against Krylov than the other way around.
Yeah, I don't know, man. That's just one we'll have to agree to disagree on. I personally am not concerned about Krylov getting choked out. I get that it's happened maybe six times, and the most recent one was against Paul Craig when he was dominating Paul Craig, and he even had the ground time domination as well. I think it was like 4 minutes of ground time. But Paul Craig is one of those guys that likes being on his back too. So maybe it was a strategical thing from Paul Craig's end, but he ended up just getting a last, not necessarily last second because it was in the first round. But what I'm trying to say is if you look this fight up on Google, right, it'll be like, oh, Paul Craig got the comeback chokeout because it really looked like he was about to lose the fight. So I don't know, man. I do see that Krylov has been submitted before. I honestly don't think that's going to be the way this fight ends. Whether or not Krylov wins, I think it's going to be done on the feet for either of these guys. I could be wrong. But in that case, Ryan Spann isn't shown in his history to be a guy who goes for takedowns. He's just one of those guys who doesn't mind if he gets taken down. And I kind of see Krylov as a similar way. So, in my opinion, neither of them are necessarily going to be looking for it. And that's kind of why I anticipated to stay on the feet and why I like Krylov in the long run.
Okay, well, you guys there have it. Nick has Krylov and I have Spann. Krylov, Nick for 5 weight, and for me, I have Ryan Spann at my 3 weight. And now for my 5 weight, the guy that I'm the most confident in, and this fight is between Andre Muniz and Brandon Allen. Right now, Andre Muniz is the betting favorite at -230, while Brandon Allen is the betting underdog at +176. Straightforward. I think Andre Muniz has been on a killer win streak. He's beating the names of Uriah Hall, Eric Anders, Jacare Souza. I think it's really hard for me not to side with him. So for this one, I feel really confident in Andre Muniz getting the job done against Brandon Allen. Brandon Allen, he's 27. I don't think he's entered his prime yet. I actually still think even though he's been in the UFC for quite a bit, I still think he has a lot of learning to go. But I'm actually interested to see where you have this fight weighted at, Nick.
Yeah, dude, I have this right now at a 2 weight for Brendan Allen. So we do. This is another fight we disagree on as of now, but it's kind of the other way around in the sense that you're much more confident in Muniz than I am Brendan Allen, and my main reasons for that is just kind of looking at some of the fight history we've seen from Brandon Allen. He's not only on a 4 fight win streak, but in those fights he hasn't been submitted. You know what I'm saying? And he's fought some guys that are big time strikers, no doubt about it. So I am curious, and to a certain degree, to see how he can fare against a guy as strong on the ground as Muniz, because it's kind of clear what he's going to be going for. But still to be said that Brendan Allen has not been submitted in the UFC at least. So that being said, it does kind of make me nervous if I'm betting on Muniz, because you're kind of saying that he's going to get the submit. I mean, sure, he does have decision wins under his belt, a couple of them in the UFC. Does Muniz? I'm just not sure that's going to be the case here against Brendan Allen. I think he's going to bring it. But you do bring up a good point as well about Brendan Allen still being really young and not necessarily in his prime. So that also goes to show is why I'm not sitting here putting him as my 4 or 5 weight. That's just kind of the thoughts that I had on the fight and why I still kept Allen on the board, but on a little bit lower confidence.
Yeah, and I'm not too sure. Like I am for certain that I think on the feet, Brandon Allen, he has a higher striking advantage in terms of he throws almost 4 significant strikes per minute, while Andre Muniz throws almost half of that. So yeah, without a doubt, I agree. It's no question Andre Muniz is going to look for the grappling, and I'm not sure, but like I think right now it's like yeah we got the I think Brand Allen is currently ranked. Not like the ranking really matters, but I'm kind of interested in seeing like why they put a number 11 against an unranked guy. Though Brand Allen, their records are pretty similar. They both definitely a lot more wins. Um, and right now, Andre Muniz, he has that reach advantage, a 3-inch reach advantage. So I wonder if that's going to help play a role in the grappling game. That being said, yeah, he hasn't been knocked out since 2016, and he's only been finished 4 times in his career, and not once in the UFC. I don't know if Brandon Allen's going to be the guy to finish him. I think it's going to be tougher competition to put Andre Muniz out. So that being said, I'm extremely confident with Andre Muniz. I'm getting the win come Saturday night. So that's why I have Andre Muniz as my 5, Nick.
Okay. Yeah, and just a couple last disclaimers that I had on this fight. Um, one thing I had is that Brendan Allen was able to submit Kevin Holland. And granted, that was a few years ago, borderline, about 3.5 years ago now, which is crazy that that's 2019. But I think that's noteworthy enough to say that Brendan Allen I wouldn't compare Kevin Holland's grappling to Muniz. Just because Muniz he has 4 submissions in his UFC career already. It's either submission or decision. So
One of them, the Jacare Souza, I would add, which is pretty
that's
impressive. So
I love that. Yeah, I mean that's awesome. So yeah, and the last point is that I kind of mentioned briefly earlier that I'm curious to see what Brendan Allen can do against a true grappler. His only current losses in the UFC are to Chris Curtis and Sean Strickland, and those guys are well known as top end strikers. I'm curious, will he be able to contend with a grappler, or will he have shown multiple weaknesses with room to improve, still being pretty young? That being said, we're going to move on to my four weight picks since we've gotten our most confident picks. Let's get to our second most confident picks. And funny enough, Jose, we actually covered the main and co-main events back to back. That does not happen often. The next fight in line will be my four weight Mike Malott fighting Yohan Lainesse at welterweight. This is going to be minus 250. Pretty heavy favorite. One of the heaviest favorites on the card, no doubt about it. Yohan Lainesse plus 190 underdog. This is just one of those spots. Both of these guys are young. Both these guys do not have many fights under their belt. So this is going to be one of the fights that it's kind of fascinating to see the UFC put as the main card, but it is a UFC fight night, not a pay-per-view event. So it makes sense. But these guys combined have like 20 career fights, professionally at least. And there's some guys on this main event who have that many wins alone. So it's just fascinating to see. But yeah, that being said, four weight Mike Malott. Jose, what are you looking at for this one?
For this one, I also have Mike Malott. I have him in my two-way. Reason being is that Yohan, well, both guys have not been in the UFC long enough to begin with, and Yohan, I think there's still a lot to be seen from him. His official UFC debut, not counting the Dana White Contender Series, he lost in second round via TKO. And he just came off a split decision, and it was a split decision. He got the win for sure. And I think even though he's not riding as much as of a winning streak as Mike Malott, I still think that he's a legitimate threat. That's why I have Mike at my two weight.
Yeah, and I personally kind of see Johan as a kind of guy who's looking to swing pretty heavy, and get that big KO power swing. He was able to do it in the Dana White's Contender Series fight to get his contract, but he hasn't been able to do it since. And that split decision win against Darian Weeks is debatable. I think it was more or less damage that kind of carried him through that because the striking numbers are pretty jaw-droppingly different there. But regardless, will he be able to get that against Mike Malott? Personally, I think not. I think Mike Malott's going to be able to counter and use combinations. I'm not necessarily leaning on a KO, but Mike Malott's two UFC fights so far have ended in, well, I guess technically one because Dana White's Contender Series isn't technically official yet. So his one UFC fight, UFC 273, was a one-round finish. So, man, we'll see if he can continue the quick finishes here, but sounds like both of us are pretty confident on Malott.
Yeah, 100% confident on Malott. And again, I want to add, like, even though he's been on a 4-fight winning streak, before that he had a draw for Bellator, and before that, he did lose in the World Series of Fighting back in 2014. So it was a while ago to Hakeem Dawodu. So that and he's been in the UFC for quite a bit. So Mike Malott does have had some UFC experience early on in his career, even though it was a loss. I that kind of does make me a little more confident going with him because he has seen some tough competition. So I feel so that's another reason why I think to go with Mike Malott. But there you have it, both Nick and I from Mike Malott. I have him at my two weight, and Nick at his four. And for my four weight, I have Tatiana Suarez. I'm going to go jump off the bat right into that. It's been a minute since we've seen Tatiana Suarez. She's coming back from a short break. Last time we saw her was a unanimous decision win against Nina Muniz back in 2019. So it has been a minute. Right now, she is the betting favorite at minus, right now, according to FanDuel, she is minus 900. While Montana De La Rosa is the betting underdog at plus 520. Montana De La Rosa, she has been active since Tatiana Suarez has been out of the UFC for a short bit. So I'm actually kind of surprised to see such a huge disparity within this money line. And I'm curious to see where you have this fight weighted at, Nick.
Yeah, this is my one fight, Jose, that I don't actually have a weight on. But I agree with your sentiment that, if I was going to make a pick on this fight, regardless or not of weights, I would definitely lean with Tatiana Suarez. I'm definitely one of those believers that if you're a true fighter and you continue to work out, stay in the gym in terms of work, getting your grappling or your sparring or whatever you need to get in done, I think you don't really lose as much if you still put yourself in those situations. So that being said, I wouldn't expect to see Suarez come out slow. I mean, maybe she does, but in any case, honestly, will she need to be 100% to beat Montana De La Rosa either? That's something that is also, I think, a valid question. But I don't know, man. We'll see. But this is one I don't have a pick on, officially at least.
No, yeah, for sure. I totally get it. You know, coming in, looking at it, I was a little iffy. You know, seeing like Tatiana Suarez be back on this card, and seeing who her opponent would be, and right off the bat, Montana De La Rosa, she is coming off a split decision win. So kind of seeing that's kind of like, okay, I don't, I'm not too threatened, but the fact that Tatiana has been out for a while is a little bit of a threat. But then when you look at the stats, I kind of feel better in terms of almost everything Tatiana throws is double than what Montana De La Rosa throws. For example, Tatiana Suarez, she's a heavy grappler. Her takedown average is 6.47 versus Montana De La Rosa's 2.08. While Tatiana Suarez throws almost 5 significant strikes per minute, while Montana De La Rosa throws 2.6. In general, Tatiana 100% takedown defense. I think Tatiana is pretty much going to dominate this fight. Like you said, it may be a slow start, but at the end, I honestly think Tatiana Suarez can drag it out and get a unanimous decision win. So for that one, yeah, I got Tatiana Suarez as my 4 weight.
Yeah, that's a good point, man. Honestly, the more I look at this, I think I definitely agree, and I would endorse, at least looking into that money line on Tatiana, seeing that she was able to dominate Carla Esparza with 9 takedowns and getting a KO win. That's just so interesting, man. Like today's Carla Esparza you would not expect that, but I'm so curious to see what Tatiana's going to bring on Saturday, man. No doubt about it.
Right, yeah, and not to mention too, she also has not to forget to mention, she also has like a win over Alexa Grasso, submitting her in the first round, and Alexa Grasso is going to challenge Valentina Shevchenko for the strap pretty soon. So Tatiana Suarez has been up there with some of the top of the division. So that being said, that's why that's why I feel pretty confident with Tatiana Suarez. Sorry, my dog's in the background.
No, it's all good, man. It's all good. That being said, we're going to move on, though, to the next fight, which will be my three weight. And my three weight this week is Erik Gonzalez versus Trevor Peek. I should have said first, though, the guy that I'm picking is Trevor Peek. I am not picking Erik Gonzalez here. And that's mainly just obviously looking at his history. His first UFC fight kind of got thrown to the dogs against Jim Miller, but Jim Miller is an old timer. He's good, but he also just lost this past weekend. I'm just not sure. Jim Miller is like, it was a good matchup, I think, and he got KO'd in the second round, and Terrence McKinney absolutely walked all over him in the first round. Erik Gonzalez just hasn't shown really anything special at all, and I'm not expecting that to come true against Trevor Peek. I think Trevor Peek's just gonna kind of continue to push forward. He's got 7 professional. I mean, both of these guys are very fresh to the octagon. But Erik Gonzalez, he has more fights outside of the UFC, but it's specifically in the UFC. Trevor Peek has one fight against Malik Lewis, got a KO. I think Trevor Peek's going to just be him. He's going to push forward and try and get as much damage on the other guy done as possible. Almost like dude who fought Brandon Moreno before the right in between the Figueiredo trilogy or whatever. Dude just took hit after hit. No, it was I don't even know if he's in the UFC anymore. Um, but obviously I don't want to sit here and dwell on a fighter that doesn't matter. But the point of it is that he was a punching bag, right? He just sat there and got punched, got punched, got punched. And the point I'm trying to make is that Trevor Peek is not necessarily concerned about taking some damage because he's planning on dealing a lot more. And I fully anticipate that to be the case here against Erik Gonzalez. Jose, do you have any weight on this fight?
Yeah, so for this one, I'm gonna have to agree with you, Nick. So I actually don't have a weight, but I will side with someone. Just again, yeah, this is one of the fights that I did not choose to put a weight into. But what I will say is that looking at the stats right now, just seeing Trevor Peek's output, for example, 7.09 significant strikes per minute, crazy. 68% significant strike landed, crazy. It just seems like everything he throws compared to Eric Gonzalez, again, kind of like my last fight, is just double the pace. The takedown average is about the same though, I would say. So I think this one, I think on the feet, I would say Trevor Peaks, yeah, definitely winning on the feet and it being an equal battle when it comes to the takedown game. But I think he should do enough to get the job done. So for this one, even though I don't have a weight with it, I'm gonna have to agree with you that I take Trevor Peak taking the wins come Saturday.
Erik Gonzalez had fought in Combat Americas before the UFC, and he was able to secure one submission win and three submission losses in that time. I'm not expecting that to be a threat whatsoever here. And as you saw in those stats, man, Trevor Peak is willing to take 8.5 strikes per minute to land seven, and he's still going to win the fight. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised to see something similar happen against Erik Gonzalez with maybe a little less volume against him because Erik, like you mentioned, Erik Gonzalez has shown that he's a low volume kind of guy so far, at least. So yeah, that brings us to the last fight then.
Yeah, because my three-way was Ryan Spann, which we had talked about, and then that goes to your two-way, Brandon Allen, and my two, Mike Malott. So yeah, that leaves to the number one,
Yep.
and it's one fight. Yeah, we haven't talked about yet, and that's the big boys. That's the heavyweights. That's the fight between Sakai and Dantale Mayas. Right now, Augusto Sakai, he is the betting favorite at my bad. This is
He's minus
right now.
128.
Yeah, he's minus 128, while Dante Myers is the betting underdog at plus 100. For this one, I myself, this is like the last one. Even though it's the heavyweights, I feel like normally with these heavyweight fights, I wouldn't have them so weighted so low. I feel like usually at this division, we always have a for certain guy that's gonna come in and either have that knockout equalizer power or just overall pure dominant. And for this one, I honestly thought it can go either way, and I felt a lot more confident in all the other fights. So for this one, I do have Augusto Sakai taking the win. Not as confident, but I am going with Augusto Sakai taking the W. So that's why he's my one weight. How about you, Nick?
I agree. I mean, Sakai is my one weight pick, and the more I look into this, the more I feel like, and it's a great time to stress to the viewers that that's part of being in the business, right? Is we are giving our opinions early in the week, and these opinions can slightly change them. Obviously, they're not going to completely pivot 180s, but you might. From what we're most confident in tonight, might not be what you see on the tweet on Saturday. Is what I guess I'm saying. So things like moving my one weight from a guy up or down one might happen. And in this case, I'm more or less kind of tempted to switch my one weight to Suarez, Tatiana. But that being said, I have this picked right now as Sakai as my one weight. I think it could go either way, no doubt about it. That's why I'm low confidence. Sakai's coming off 4 losses. And to me, that's almost a motivational thing. And some people are going to look at it like, well, he's on a losing streak. He's going to lose and lose his contract. But to me, would that not be the time where you're the most motivated? Like, if I can't get this to work, it's just, that's it. Like, I'm losing my job pretty much here. So to me, I mean, maybe that's how I would think about it. I can't read Sakai's mind, but he ought to be motivated to go in there and fight hard because this is fighting for his job, in my opinion. Mays, has a couple pretty decent wins under his belt. 3 of his 4 wins are KO wins. So is he going to be able to KO Sakai? Maybe. Sakai has been KO'd before, most recently by Tai Tuivasa, and Spivak, I believe, did as well. But Spivak's kind of doing some dirty things in the heavyweight division. So is Tai. So there's some tough dudes to lose to. Sakai's not losing to low end fighters, and in fact, he did even beat Marcin Tybura, who I'd argue is a little bit level higher above some of these lowly heavyweight fighters. So those are the main small leans that I have towards Sakai, which is why I ended up putting him as my one weight.
Yeah, and I agree with you. Like the name value of a lot of his opponents he's had in the past is definitely a reason why I'm leaning towards him as well. I mean, yeah, like you said, Alice Overeem, Arsenio Rosenstrike, Tai Tuivasa, Spivak. no shame. But he also, yeah, like you meant, Tybura, Blagoy Ivanov, and Andrei Arlovsky, some names there. Chase Sherman, we've
Yeah.
talked about Chase Sherman enough, but so he should have had this win over him, as we know, and he had obviously the win on Dana White's Contender Series. So yeah, this 4-fight losing streak, no shame in those names. I don't think this is one of those names that should beat him, but they can beat him, and that's why Augusto Sakai has won. Myers, for example, like, yeah, he had 2 wins, but I don't know what that no contest was about against Hamdi. Um,
Hamdi
but that being
Hamdi
said,
was caught on steroids, I believe. I
okay,
think don't I
okay,
could be wrong, but I think he initially lost the fight, but Hamdi was like caught with some shit.
okay. Thank you for that. So yeah, so I mean, I don't know, man. Maybe there's more reason to go for Myers than too, because if it was, I mean, even though he lost that, he technically has 2 wins. Then not counting that no contest, but I'm gonna go with, because of the name value, Augusto Sakai. So I'm gonna stick with you on this and have him as my one weight, like yourself, Nick.
Yeah, and I also would mention Sakai seems to win the fights that he should win. I was kind of looking at it, and all the fights that Sakai has lost, even going back to he had a Bellator run, he was an underdog going into that fight. So I'm just saying, he seems to win the fights that he should win. And in this fight, he's a minus 128 underdog. Not quite heavy, but it's enough to me to where he is the favorite and he will win the fight that he should win. So that being said, that's all 6 fights covered for Moneyline MMA coverage. Definitely feel free to give us a comment down below, give us a like, let us know who you're going to be betting on, and follow us on Twitter to get our picks on Saturday with our best lock, underdog, and parlay of the week. And otherwise, thank you guys for listening. And of course, as always, we'll be back next week to continue MMA coverage. Thanks for listening.